Welcome to Board Game Binge, the place where we bring you bite-sized, bingeable board game content from across the industry. I'm your host, James Staley, and in this episode, we're chatting with Rafa Dahvid, an aero-mechanical engineer who spends his days solving logistical problems at offshore wind farms. He spends his evenings playing and designing games like Connecting Flights, an airline management board game that's currently on Kickstarter. Rafa, welcome to the Binge. How you doing?
Hi, I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it is absolutely amazing to have you on this podcast. As soon as I saw this game, it was an instant back for me. And then I reached out to you right away saying, we got to get you on the podcast. I want to talk about this game. This game looks so friggin' cool. But before we get there, I think what's even crazier is the background you have coming into this industry. So you grew up in Poland, I guess, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
And did you play a lot of board games growing up?
I played what was available to me at the time. So that's kind of just the classics, like first of all, chess, Monopoly. Yeah, I mean, also card games as well. And then I slowly transitioned into video games as well.
Okay.
So I particularly enjoyed games that you can kind of build up stuff from scratch, like tycoon games, Civilization, things like that. And then, yeah, as kind of the board game industry grew and became more popular, more and more games were hitting the market. I kind of got introduced to the kind of more modern games and started playing those, and yeah, still enjoying them.
Now that industry has actually become pretty robust in Poland as well. Like I noticed the podcast, we've got a lot of listeners from Poland. Previous campaigns I've done, backers from Poland. So would you say that it's more developed, or less developed than you're seeing in areas like, say, the UK or even Germany?
I would say it's about the same level. I think even looking at the Kickstarter campaign just now, we have backers from all over Europe. We have like 20 plus backers from like 5 or 6 or 7 different countries in the EU alone, and even more from across the world.
That's crazy. And then so you left Poland and moved to Scotland, right?
That's
for
correct.
School?
Yeah,
so,
for school.
No, why Scotland? Like, of all the universities you go to, why did you choose Scotland?
Well, I guess I already spoke English at the time, so that made it a little easier. And then, yeah, it's just the universities here are free as well. So that was good. Yeah, I guess it's just a beautiful country with lots of interesting things to do and very welcoming people.
And what got you into aeromechanical engineering? Like that seems like not only a really cool field to study, but it's not a typical field, right? Usually there's something that would influence you to kind of go in that direction. What were your influences?
I just always was interested in like aviation, planes. I enjoyed traveling, and so I kind of just wanted to be a part of that industry. And yeah, always had like an interest in planes and engineering as well. So that's the kind of main reason why I went for that.
And did you have any kind of exposure growing up at all to, like, did you know anybody that worked near an airline, or do you have exposure to planes outside of just studying, or is it just purely like the studying and then got into the industry?
Well, no, my exposure was kind of just going to the airports as well, not to fly, but just to watch the kind of planes taking off. That was a couple of times with my uncle, but nothing really, not too much beyond that. No.
That's cool. It kind of reminds me of here in Canada, a lot of people growing up, there's a spot near the airport where you pull your car up, lay down the hood, and I mean, it feels like the plane, you can almost reach up and touch it. It's so close, and it's such an amazing experience. And the engineering that allows something so large to go in the air and fly around the world. It truly is a modern marvel. So what led you then into wind farm? So you're in the wind farm industry now, I guess, eh?
I am now, yeah. Yeah, it's just really that after I graduated, a couple of opportunities came up, and one of them was to basically do some further studies and basically solve these problems that offshore wind farms are facing. And I kind of transitioned from this industry that's a big contributor to CO2 emissions,
Mhm.
to like an industry where you're actually trying to take away some of those emissions. And yeah, I just kind of jumped on that opportunity, and it's still engineering. It's no longer planes, and I'm kind of looking back. I'm kind of glad I went that way, because what's happening with the aviation industry now with the pandemic. It's really quite challenging for many
Yeah.
people to find jobs at this time. So now, yeah, like you say, I'm working with for a company that does software for offshore wind farms, and we're basically trying to make it easier to kind of run offshore wind farms and do all the planning and all these kind of things.
What are some of the synergies, like some of the learnings you take from like the airline industry over to offshore? Is it because you have these giant propellers, or is there
Exactly,
elements?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you still have to know aerodynamics to work with turbines, definitely.
That's amazing. And then in the evenings, I guess you decided that you're going to get into board game design. Now, is this something you've been have you been doing board game design for a while, or is this rather recent, or how did you get into board game design?
Yeah, I mean, as a kid, I would come up with really, really basic games, like maybe
Yeah.
just roll a dice and then roll a dice again and multiply the numbers and then subtract and add. And so really, really basic stuff like that. But then I just kind of saw, as I was kind of playing all these cool different board games and, getting into the field, I just realized that there are some gaps in the market. And like I said, the first gap is that there's not that many airline games, where at
Mm,
least to compare to, like, for example, other industries, like there's loads of train games,
yeah.
and it's like trading in the Mediterranean seems to be like a big theme. But like, to me, airlines is exciting, and I didn't really see that many games that I could just go off and purchase off the shelf. So that was one of the drivers, just to start the board game design process. And the second is kind of like these problems I'm solving on a day-to-day basis. It's like, uh, one might call that like a traveling salesman problem, when you're trying to find like the shortest path between a set of different points. These kind of problems, to me, they are interesting, but you don't really see that problem in so many board games. And I just thought that comparing, like, sort of bringing together, the interesting problem of like trying to solve this logistical puzzle, and bringing together that with the airline theme, I thought that was kind of something that personally I would enjoy playing. And I know that there is lots of people who are really into airlines, and
Yeah.
some people who are really into puzzles. So that's like I knew that these were two big potential markets for this game. So I just decided to go ahead and try and make something that works.
Now, when you decided to make this game, was the initial thought just to make the game, or was the thought process was Kickstarter kind of always in your mindset there?
No, the first step was just to make something that's playable, have a go at it, see if, playing with my family, if they enjoy it, if compare it to the games I played previously, is it much worse, or is it, almost or on par? And as I kind of designed it, the first time I properly played it with a bunch of people, I just felt like, I'm onto something, because it's that kind of feeling when you sit down at the table and you start playing, and
Yeah.
you keep playing, and by the time you kind of realize what time it is, it's like 3 hours have passed, and you've enjoyed yourself the whole time. And after that playtest, I just thought, I think I might be onto something here. Let's kind of see how far I can take this.
And so obviously there's some synergy here with your background in the airline industry and studying airlines
Yeah.
and bring this game to fruition. I think you're right. I think that's what attracted me to this game, was that I hadn't really seen anything quite like it, which was an instant back for me. I backed on day one. It was absolutely a no brainer. I don't even think I made it to the end of the pledge page. I just started scrolling. I'm like, yep, I'm in. It's pretty straightforward. I mean, kudos to you. We'll show this page in a second, but one thing that really struck me about this game was that you're able to very, very quickly give the general concept of the game. And I think that's a miss for a lot of people who create games, whether they're simple games or complicated games. Often people will not be able to do that kind of 30-second pitch to say, okay, what's the
Yeah.
essence of this game? And often I'll see a game I'm interested in. I'm not going to mention the name of it, but one happened recently where the image, I was like, wow. And I jumped in right away. I'm like, okay. And I started reading and reading and reading. And I'm like, what is this game about? So I went to watch a playthrough video, and then the playthrough video was going on and on. Like I was like 7 minutes into this playthrough video, and I'm like, this is way, way too complicated. Not a chance I'm gonna be able to pull this out and get my kids or my family or my friends to play this at the table. It's just this is not a simple concept. So I end up not back in that game. Your game on the flip side was very, very quick and easy to kind of understand the concept. Although there's still obviously a lot of rules and stuff I'm going to learn when I get my copy, which I'm excited to get. But this essence of kind of building these connecting flights and rearranging them to make it more efficient and stuff like that, I thought was really interesting and really compelling. So what now, did you reach out to a lot of people? Did you have some consultants that helped you, or like this is your first game? So for someone, their first game, this is a pretty impressive outcome. You're at 85,000 in Canadian dollars, which always sounds larger, so I like to use that number. Your backers, 1,149 backers, still got 17 days to go. This thing in Canadian dollars for sure is going to go over 100,000, probably hit 120, maybe 140. Never know. Sometimes these things just run away, and the sky's the limit, pun intended. So how did you come into this naked? So you had an idea on how to design based on some gaps you saw in the marketplace, but Kickstarter is another beast altogether. How did you go about that process of deciding how you're going to actually make the game and then promote it?
When it comes to the Kickstarter design page, I had for the past year, I just had a routine when every weekend I would just go on the Kickstarter page and literally browse all of the games that kind of looked like either they were going to fund and do well, or the games that were kind of in the same space. So kind of like Euro games, maybe kind of games, it's not like RPGs or whatever, but kind of more in that space. And I would just basically take, a couple of hours every weekend just to browse through all the games and pick out like things that I do like, pick out the campaigns that, explain the game really well. Always kind of look at the order of things. What should come first? Should it be the pledge levels? Should it be the stretch goals? And just kind of also quite often people actually can share the sort of the pre-campaign page. And quite often you see other people have the ability to comment on that page. And also that's quite useful because I was just kind of clicking on people who were looking for feedback, and I was reading the feedback of other people who, the ones who were giving the feedback to them. And I always found that really useful because a lot of the feedback just kind of, it's really universal, applies to most games. And so, that kind of process for over the course of the year, I just kind of had a feeling at what sells and what doesn't, because you see those campaigns and you see that one's got $100,000, and you can, over the time, you kind of build up a picture of what works and what doesn't. And I think that really helped. So just having this sort of awareness of the Kickstarter market, having backed a few games on Kickstarter, being through the whole process and understanding how it works, seeing the kind of Kickstarter from the other side as a backer, that really helps you kind of understand how it all works.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Research is key, right? You got to do your research and you got to, see what's working with other people and, quite frankly, what's not working, right? I think those are key. Let's jump into the page. I'm going to share the screen. And if you don't mind, can you walk us through how to play this game? So explain basically how you played this game.
Sure. So in Connecting Flights, you manage an airline, and at least in the competitive mode, the aim is to become the most profitable airline. So to do that, you will purchase cards, which are planes, passengers, and airports, and you string those cards together, making connections and flights. And each flight will give you a certain amount of income. And if you want to win the game, you have to make the highest income in the last round of the game. So the game lasts 10 rounds, and every round there will be an event. So that's something that happens to everyone. It's usually something thematically related to airlines. Then you get the opportunity to buy cards. Then you make your flights and you make money. Sometimes you can opt for a sabotage later, so that's a bit of a take that element. But I do realize that lots of people kind of prefer not to have take that in Euro games, so there is an option to kind of play without it. And then that's like a single round, and you basically do that 10 times, and whoever has the highest income at the end is the winner. The other aspect is you could also play the game cooperatively, and some people have said that it's a totally different game. What's the common denominator? It's the mechanism to make flights. So that's still the same, but the aim of the game in the cooperative mode is now to make sure that all the passengers get home safely by the end of the game. And so you either win if you manage to take everyone home, or you lose if you don't. And either you can play solo, or you can work with another player to basically try and figure out the most efficient way to take everyone to where they want to go.
And when you sabotage, I mean, are you like messing with their planes? Or are you just trying to like steal their fuel, or what's the?
I tried to keep it quite light, so there's nothing grim, like no plane crashes or anything. It's just also some thematic stuff, like for example, like I don't know, a corporate lawsuit, or maybe you offered like a free upgrade to your opponent's passengers, so they want to come with you rather than with them. Or obviously we've got like snakes on the plane as well, which is
that's awesome.
Which is a great movie.
Yeah, the Kickstarter page is very well done. I've been scrolling while you've been chatting here, and it is very well laid out. The graphics, kudos to the team. We'll get into the team members in a second, but you've got a pretty robust team, which is really cool. I like the idea that you've got, this co-op mode. And did you say there is a solo mode to this game as well?
Yeah, the co-op mode, you can play it in the one-player mode.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And then there's components I noticed when I was scrolling. There's like fuel, so you have to like fuel up your planes.
Yeah.
And the cost of fuel, depending on kind of where you're connecting, I guess, can have different costs. Whether I guess I was reading somewhere that if it goes diagonal versus latitudinal versus longitudinal, all have different kind of fuel costs, I guess, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And then in terms of the upgrades, so what kind of upgrades are you planning for this? Like you've hit your higher targets. Is there like, and I noticed that the cards, for instance, have been unlocked to like a 320. What else are you guys planning for your upgrades?
I think so. We had a few comments, and generally the people seem to prefer upgrades that kind of add to the gameplay and replayability. So what we kind of decided to do is, for all the future stretch goals, we will hopefully have like a poll. So we give people a couple of choices, and they can decide what to go with. So far we've done like a choice between like more of a gameplay update and more of like a component update. And so far the feedback has been that people just kind of want extra cards, extra scenarios, things like that. So, but we will keep kind of offering this choice. Ultimately, as a sneak preview, I could say that we might be able to add like a small expansion, which would add like hidden roles in the game. So the game already has asymmetrical player abilities, so that kind of lets you play as a certain kind of character, like maybe you're a trader, or maybe you're an aircraft engineer, or a market analyst, or an investment manager. So these kind of roles, but these are open information, and we're kind of hoping that if we can unlock a couple more stretch goals, then the final stretch goal will be like this kind of expansion where everyone also has a hidden role, and that hidden role kind of drives your agenda. Maybe there's like a little mission that you have to carry out, maybe connect a certain set of cities or airports, or maybe you just have to kind of, I don't know, sabotage someone in a certain way, or if you're like a hidden agenda is the mafia or whatever. So we have this kind of planned as well.
Would it be like an early victory mission, or would it be more like a ticket to ride where you have like ways to level up your points by achieving certain connections and things like that?
More of the latter. I think I still want to preserve the kind of, don't really want to make it too easy to win kind of randomly. So I still my design vision has always been that, you know, the best player at the table, the most experienced, the one who spends the most time thinking, should kind of win most of the time. Not like every time. It's not like chess where it's kind of, if you're definitely better, then you're definitely going to win. So there's still, we do have some strong catch-up mechanics that kind of keep the game close, but my vision has always been to kind of just make sure that, you know, the best player at the table has the best chance of winning the game.
That's cool. Now you've got quite the international team. You've got people from the United Kingdom, Australia, Brazil, USA, Netherlands. At least these are what's on their passports on your page. Israel, USA. How did you bring this whole team together? Like, what was the process for that?
Yeah, so there wasn't really a formal process. Some of them were just recommendations from the people in the industry. Some of them were just posts on Facebook groups where I just said what I needed, and people kind of commented with what they have to offer. I just kind of looked at the portfolios of people and just decided to go with it, especially if like people, a lot of the people that I worked with have a proven track record in the board game industry. So that definitely makes my decision easier because I know that I can trust them.
And are you guys, you know, at your current level, which is way higher than your initial kind of target? Would you say you're further ahead than you expected, about where you expected, or below where you expected?
I think we're further ahead at the moment. We didn't quite expect to have such a big, so many fans at this stage in the campaign.
Yeah.
So I would say definitely working with Backer Kit marketing helped with that.
Okay.
So they were doing some ads for us, and they brought in a good few $1,000 in backers.
Yeah, Backer Kit's great. I use them on my recent campaign. Are you going to use their pledge manager as well, or what's your thoughts for that?
Yeah, we're going to go with the pledge manager as well.
Yeah, it's amazing. So for people who are listening and don't know, I know we've talked about social media amplification ad nauseum on this podcast, but you know, if you can find someone to help manage those ads consistently, what I'm seeing in most campaigns that are funding successfully typically have some type of a social media amplification company work with them, like a Backer Kit. I'm currently going through a pledge manager right now. I'm using CrowdOx, which is also owned by Backer Kit as well. I know they're transitioning from CrowdOx over to Backer Kit soon. But from my experience, even in that, if you want to increase your pledge amount after your campaign's done, you know, you're looking at another 10, 15, 20% funding that you can generate through that pledge management software, which is really cool. And they're pretty slick, you know, back-end systems that really make it easy for the user. I've done a campaign where I did my own pledge management, and I can tell you that the survey that you get as default with Kickstarter is not great. It is probably like a Google Sheets kind of level of complexity when you send it out. I mean, it's functional, but it's not great, right? So if you have any complexity to your game at all, you probably want to use some type of a pledge management software. What would you say would be some of the key influencers for you when you're putting together this campaign? Like what was maybe a person or a game that you look to the most to say, okay, I really got to kind of focus in on this person, this individual, or this particular game to help inform what I want to do with connecting flights?
Again, I can't remember a single game that really influenced this. I think it's just a matter of picking and choosing the best bits out of many campaigns. Yeah.
And then your preview videos. I notice you've got a lot of preview videos on there.
Yeah.
They're not cheap, right? And I know the ones you've got, so I have a good idea of how much you've spent going in to this just on preview videos alone. That's a big decision to make going into a Kickstarter campaign, right? To put funds forward to say, okay, you know, I need to hit a certain level to fund. But to even get there, I need to invest money up front, right? In marketing, in pre-marketing, like preview videos and so forth. What was that thought process for you when you went through this? You know, did you weigh the pros and cons, and what ultimately led you to say, okay, I'm gonna put some cash in and you know, get this done this way?
Yeah, I actually prioritized those videos over, for example, the kind of conventional wisdom might be to grow a big mailing list.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't really. I didn't spend any money on kind of growing my mailing list. So I had like an organic mailing list of people who somehow found my website and
Yeah.
signed up to the mailing list there. So my mailing list was really really small. But I just kind of decided if I'm going to spend money, I might as well just, pre-campaign, I might as well just spend it on the previous videos, because personally that's kind of what I look when I'm browsing through different campaigns.
Yeah.
And also what I saw from, like I said, so much browsing of different games on Kickstarter is that generally the games with decent with a number of reviews or previews, with especially done by channels who are well established and known in the community, these kind of campaigns tend to do better, at least in my experience.
Yeah.
And so as for investing, like you say, I just knew that if I don't invest the money upfront in these preview videos, then the game would probably not go anywhere. So it was kind of like all or nothing, because if I definitely want to make this game happen, then I really need those videos.
And it's a risk, right? Because that's a sunk
Yeah.
cost. There's no guarantee you're getting that revenue back, right? So
No, that's
but I would
right.
say though, some of these previewers, and I mean, you've picked some very prominent ones. They come with 25,000, subscribers to their channels. When they put a new video, that video, anybody signed up to be notified is going to be notified they just launched another video. So you are getting eyeballs on your game, from someone that knows what they're talking about. I know from my personal experience, these previewers were able to talk and dissect and explain my game better than I could.
Yeah.
Right. Like they are pros at what they do. So if you can pull it off and put the funds towards, I wholeheartedly echo your sentiments on this. This is one area going into my last campaign that I absolutely knew I had to do as, previewers. It was something I had to make sure I had nailed down for my campaign. You had a nice video as well in your campaign, and a lot of nice animation that you've got on your page, which is really great. How did you find your animator for that? Was that outsourced? Is something you did yourself, or?
No, so I work with Ori Kagan, and so he did loads of videos for different Kickstarters, and I just saw those videos, and as soon as I saw 3 or 4 of them, I just knew that he was a good person to work with on this.
Now, for people out there who may be working on their own campaigns, what should they expect for timelines, right? So if they need a video done, how much time? And obviously, you can't give somebody enough time, but I mean, how much time would you say somebody should, really book off to say, here's how much you're going to need to get a proper video done?
I think it's best to budget about 2 months for
2
a
months.
Kickstarter video. Yeah. Similarly for reviews, I would say also probably 2 months, depending on like if you're based in the US and you're only sending the game to reviewers in the US, then probably less. But like we were sending a game to another country, and it took a full month to arrive there. So obviously you have to factor in those delays.
How many preview copies did you have made, like when you had your prototypes done?
6.
And where did you have them done? Did you have the person who's going to end up manufacturing game do them, or did you have them done at like a prototyping type place?
It was just a local printer who specifies in prototypes for board games. So I know that they're based in the UK, so they did quite a few Kickstarter prototypes for companies in the UK, but they're probably not really well known outside of the UK.
Gotcha. Now that this campaign is successful, and I know you're going to have a busy couple of weeks doing the final stretch, what comes next? Or do you have other games that you've started working on? Is it to do an expansion of this, or is it kind of a one and done for you? Like, what's your overall plan?
It's hard to say. I don't have any more games. I have ideas, but as the saying goes, ideas are not really worth much unless you can pull them off. So I'm keeping. I don't really have much time to do game design, but I'm keeping a good notebook of ideas of how to kind of come up with my next game. Whether that's going to happen or not, I hope it will. But it's for sure going to take time, because I'm just not really one of those people who come up with 10 different ideas and have like a few games running at the same time. I just need to be able to fully focus on a single project. And so sometimes when you get blocked, you get stuck for a month or two, and there is no progress, and it just takes time to unblock and maybe find a solution to your problem. So that's kind of how I work, and sometimes that means that it just takes a long time to solve a problem and come up with a good design.
I just gotta say, it's been so cool to hear your story and how your background, your education, everything's kind of linked together to eventually have this game now hit the marketplace. And I'm sure it's an immense amount of pride for you to have your name on a game that's going to be on shelves, hopefully around the world. I think it's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, it's great. And yeah, like I said, I think at least, every Christmas, family gatherings, I'll just have them to play my game, and that would be like that would be my moment to shine.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the one thing I always find is what's the old saying is you're never a hero in your own castle, or whatever the saying is, where get family to play your game. But you know what, this has been awesome. I can't wait to get my copy. For people that are watching or listening to the podcast, in the show notes, I'll put a link to the Kickstarter page. Go check it out. If it's a game that you find interesting, maybe you'll be a backer as well. Rafa, I wish you all the best this coming year, and good luck with this game. You take care.
Thank you very much.
This has been an episode of the Board Game Binge podcast, hosted by James Staley, produced by James Staley and Mike Bruner, with original music by Nick Smith. If you would like to watch these interviews live, simply join the Facebook group Board Game Binge, and you'll get access to live interviews, giveaways, and interesting board game content from across the industry. I can't wait for you to join us. See you next time.